Welcome to another episode on our channel. You're stuck with me again today. Today is the day of the week where she is just really hammered at work. So, no, I'm just kidding you. We're not going to do a workbench video, I promise. We will build eventually one out of materials that you can buy cheap at the big box store, a tabletop workbench. But no, today's is not a workbench video. I just happen to have it out because I need it to hold things. What we're going to do is experiment with actually four, but in particularly three different tools for flattening out the surface of wood that you cobble together with glue or adhesive or whatever. Usually it's within the context of either a diorama or just a stand for a figure. More than one of you have wondered, well, like to have had the planer that I bought for $129. The power planer, 13-inch from Ridgid. That was a weird holiday special. I still haven't gotten confirmation on what the actual confirmed retail price of that is. I thought it was in the $400 range, but I think I may have been mistaken. I think it's probably in the mid to high $300 range. Regardless, it's about a third. I bought it for a third of retail. Should have bought two and did what everybody else did, is put the second one on Craigslist and flip it for a couple $100 and gotten the price of the first one, the one I kept. Basically gotten it for free, maybe a little gas money. But dummy me. I digress. So what I did was find some of the crappiest wood I had laying around. And if you want crappy wood, a pallet is a really good place for crappy wood. This is red oak. This is underneath her workbench. This is a piece of red oak that I glued together and let set up. I was not deliberately not very careful with how I glued it. In other words, there is a lot of unevenness there at the joints of where the boards come together. I did that on purpose. So I wanted to create a worst case scenario. I should start out by saying that if you're going to do a stand or even a diorama, consider pine, finish stain grade pine. Pine's really easy to work with compared to red oak. It's a soft wood. It's not going to burn up your blades. It's easy to cut by hand. Relatively speaking, if you're using a hand planer, where is my hand planer? There it is. If you're using a hand planer like this, it planes up nice, relatively speaking, nice and smooth, although hand planing does take practice. It's not something that you just pick up and do and get it right the first time. It just takes practice. That's fine. So there's a lot of advantages to using pine, but I wanted to create a bad scenario. So what we're going to do is this. We're going to take this board outside because I don't want dust in my garage because I have two fairly new resin printers that have cooling fans. I don't want even a little bit of dust sucked up and getting clogged up in the works. Our part of Southern California, because of the winds, dust is everywhere. Previous episode, I showed you what my solar panels look like, and they're basically brown. I need to get up there and blow them off and rinse them off. We're supposed to get some rain this weekend, so maybe that will help as well. Finally, rain. So anyway, I glue this thing up, and I'm going to mark it off with tape in thirds. Maybe halves. I mean, think about it. Anyway, at least halves. And I'm going to, for one half, I'm going to use a random orbital sander to smooth it out, the irregularities. It has a Dutch catcher. It does an okay-ish job. Um, it could do better. I'll probably end up rigging a vacuum shop vac attachment to maybe print one. So that's tool number one for half or a third. I think I'm probably going to go half now that I think about it. Now I'm looking at this other thing. The other half of the board, we're going to use this. It's a belt sander. These things are very aggressive. Um, I just bought this thing. I mean, I literally just unboxed it before I hit the record button on the camcorder here. Be honest with you, I don't have a lot of experience with belt sanders. I've never needed one, um, but we'll see. But bottom line is, it does have a dust catcher. We'll see how well it works. And the belt is 3 inches wide, 21 inches if you were to cut it and stretch it out and measure it. The grit that came stock on it is a number 80 grit. The lower the number, the more abrasive the grit. The higher the number, the more fine the grit. So this is 80. That's pretty aggressive. So what I will do is, I'm pretty sure I got one. I will stick, basically Velcro of sorts. I will stick a number 80 on this one as well to see if they're, try to level things out as much as I can. Control this study as much as possible. All right. And I will also use a hand planer, the OG. I think that's what kids call it, original gangster. No matter what configuration you see, how old, this one's actually from 1903, believe it or not. This is number 4 Stanley, the Bailey line, I think. It's called a smoothing plane. You use it in a situation like this where the area is small, it's sort of okay-ish in terms of smoothness already. You don't need to take off a lot of wood. But I'm going to use this thing, not the least of which is that the person that restored this, you can shave with this blade. I've never used it before. I bought it 2 years ago, thinking I was going to use it, thinking, oh, cool, this is no tool I'm going to use. And then I get this thing, and I go, oh, precious. I'm not going to be the one that jacks it up by hitting a hidden nail. There's a lot of history here. I'm just weird that way, I guess. My wife is going to be going, oh, you bought it, use it. No, this will go back on the display when I'm done using it for you guys. So I will use that on the back side here. It's a little bit more even, although it still is not. And here's what I think I'm going to do. The fourth tool that I talked about is the $129 Ridgid power planer. Where you stick it in, it drags this whole thing, will drag this whole thing through and spit it out the other end. And it should put a nice, smooth finish, glass-like finish on it. But what I'm going to do, I don't even know if this is a good idea. I think it's a safe idea. But when I think it's about halfway through the planing process, I'm going to hit the kill switch. And then I'm going to raise up the roller and the blade, pull it out, and then take the number 4 smoothing plane and plan that out and see what kind of results I get in comparison to the other 3 or 4 tools. I will record I'll record 2 endings with this. First one will be of me subjectively telling you what I think is the smoothest surface. And if I get really lucky and my wife gets home and she's just not bone dead tired, I will do a partial blind study, so to speak, and not tell her which tool I use for which segment, and let her make a determination of what she thinks is the smoothest and the most useful for a stand of all the tools. The one tool that I'm not using is basically the powered version of this. I don't have one, and I was not compelled to go buy one. So I've used them before. I'm not crazy about them, actually, but that's just me. So one more thing before we go outside. I got a little over an hour and a half of daylight left. One thing, especially when you're using an old school hand planer, you have to learn how to read the grain of wood. And I am the worst when it comes to reading the grain of a wood. How can I do this? Let me pull this off. Let me give you a little demonstration on how I partially remedied that situation. Okay. And no, the table was not damaged when I whacked it just now. Okay, this is pine. It's pretty smooth. I haven't touched it. It came from, I don't know, hard lumber. No, it didn't come from lumber. It probably came from the big box store, Lowe's, Home Depot, Menards. And you can see the striations of the grain. An experienced woodworker can look at those striations and say, the grain runs that way. Or kind of like the fur on an animal. You can see which way, you can see that the fur is laid down in a line, and it's a bad illustration, but there's a definite difference if you pet with the grain of the fur or if you go against the nap of the fur, the grain. A master woodworker, or even probably a competent journeyman, can look at this. And I don't care if they got pepper spray in their face. They can go, yeah, it goes that way. I can't. But here's what I do instead: is that I take a pretty good quality microfiber cloth, and I kind of lay it on it, and then see, microfibers are grabbing the grain and moving the wood. So the grain, the smoothest, is running this way because I'm just resting and I'm not pushing down or anything. Just you can see it kind of jitter and catch it just enough. If I go this way, the grain is definitely smoother this way. So this would be the direction in which I would use the hand plane. So just a little something I discovered. Is probably an old trick that's been around forever, but I just discovered it when I was using a cheap microfiber towel to put stain on the oak plywood shelves that I made for her to expand the closet, so to speak. So with that out of the way, let's go outside and make some sawdust. I forgot. I'm going to have this going too. It's a decibel meter. One of the constraints that some of you had expressed was the noise inside your apartment if you were running power tools. Straight up tell you this isn't going to make any noise unless you cut yourself and go, it's not going to make any noise. And I can straight up tell you that the power planer, which is, it's basically you're not going to need a power planer if you're making dioramas and stands, but I'm just going to throw it in for heck. You can have the noise of that plus the shop vac that's sucking the copious amounts of chips and sawdust out of the thing as the board is sent through. But I give you a basis of comparison. I am in a semi-enclosed outdoor area, house on one side, fence to my back, and a very tall redwood panel fence to my, as I'm facing the camera, to my right, house to my left, vents behind me open at the top and as I'm in the area that I'm facing the camera. So it's semi-enclosed. So now let's go make some sawdust. Okay, I am seriously chasing the sun here. I hope I get this right each time, every time. Otherwise, I am going to have to move into the garage and I guess cover up my 3D printers. I got this set so it will take, let me put this down. So it will take 1/132nd of an inch off of the thickness of the planer. I will drop it if it needs to be. But remember, I'm going to stop this thing about halfway. In fact, let me mark it. There it is. Sorry about that. Let me mark it with a pencil. Ballpark this thing about halfway. All right, it is a bit windy. Surprise, surprise. Baseline is about 60 decibels. So I'm going to turn this on. I'm going to turn the shop back on. And so it suck up all the shavings. And we will go from there. Okay, we went way up to 95 decibels. Yeah, baseline about 60, 65. That's a lot. Should probably have hearing protection. Okay, change of plan. I won't be able to stop it halfway. I forgot that. It didn't occur to me. I didn't forget. It just simply didn't occur to me that as you shut this thing down, it doesn't put on a brake. It slowly brings things to a stop. So I'm just going to go ahead and plane this thing and come up with a demo for the hand planer. Bummer. Okay, but regardless, let's try this again. Wow, that was loud. But it's also slick as a baby's butt. That's to be expected. I'm sorry, I'm still perseverating on how to do a hand planing demonstration, but I'll figure it out. So let me kill the camera. This thing is 75 pounds, so I need to get it out of the way. That's the reason I started with this thing, so I didn't want to move it twice. So I'll be right back. Okay, we are back, and what I decided to do was to divide it, rather than dividing it into half, I divided it in thirds. So this will side here, since I'm going to be reading this way, since I'm right-handed, is going to be for the hand planer. The middle section will be for the random orbital hand sander, and the end here is going to be for this thing. Okay, so let's see how loud this is. Again, baseline about 60 dB. That's right at 95 as well. This thing, it's kind of surprising actually. I tried to keep it the same distance. Obviously, I didn't measure it and it's not super controlled, but it's loud. It's a different kind of loud, but it's definitely not something you want to run in your apartment. So let me shut my phone off. I'm going to get a bunch of dust on it. My glasses on. And did I even hit? Yeah, I did. I'm sorry. For a moment, I didn't think I hit the power button on the record button. So glasses. Get this thing behind me so I don't get tangled up in the cord. Okay, not terribly impressed with the dust collection. Ooh, that was stupid. Let me unplug this thing, just in case. I'm not crazy about this. Like I said before, I have little, very little, not none, but very little experience running a hand-powered belt sander. I'm sure that the results I'm experiencing right now that I'm not happy with are entirely me, at least 90% me. I just thought this thing would take off a lot more wood than it does. This is really gritty. I'm puzzled. I don't know why. I mean, yeah, I don't know why it didn't take off more wood than what it did. Regardless, let's move on to the palm sander. But the thing is, not picking up the dust at all. But I gave $35 for it, so you know, you get what you pay for. In all fairness, it does come with an adapter so that you can use your shop vac to collect the dust. But on its own, dust collection, I'm collected most of the dust on me. So, all right. So again, baseline is once again about 60. $92. It doesn't sound like it's only 3 decibels below the big planer and the belt sander, but that's what it said, 92. Kind of surprised, actually. All right, and how's the exposure on my camera? Hopefully it is okay. Here we go. All right, here we go. Oh, I need to mark that. I know what number one is, but my wife doesn't know what number one is. So I will get her, if I'm able to get her, shoot a reaction video of her before I put this up tonight. I will. Otherwise, you're gonna have to go by my subjectiveness. Okay, here we go. All right. I have more control subjectively. Again, I'm not experienced running a belt sander. Some of you may be able to shave the beard off a flea with one of those things. I'm not one of those guys. But I have more control of this. It's nope. I can't believe it's just 3 decibels difference. To my ear, it's a lot quieter than the other 2 tools. So let me mark this as number 2. There. Not a moment too soon. I am, ooh, got a little bit of a tear out there. All right. Still, let me mark this. Never put a hand plane on its belly, on the plate. So this is number 3. You know what number 3 is. So number 1, belt sander. Number 2 was the orbital sander, random, the orbital sander. Number 3 was a hand plane, actually 2 hand planes. Oak, especially red oak, I hate working with it, always have. Not that I've worked with it all that much, it's never a good experience in terms of planing and sanding. The grain is not, relative to other hardwoods, is not super tight, and it's quite long, and it's not super dense. Tight, dense, same thing. It is prone to tear outs. I will say with the power planer, it did a good job on the backside of this thing. But hand planer, because the surface area is a fraction of the big power thing, it's more prone to tear outs. I'll probably even have to just very lightly hand sand some of the demarcations, like right here, that were caused by the narrowness of the blade. Not much, just real light hand sanding. So there you have it. I am out of daylight. I hope this video right now doesn't suck in terms of graininess from having to crank up the exposure. So let's get back inside and have a look at this thing. Okay, we're back. I beat the sun, not by much, but I still beat the sun. Results. Okay, got kind of backwards here. There's not too much glare. Let me make sure. Yeah, this is number 1. This is the belt sander. I got a feeling. Well, let me back up a little bit. I am the least impressed by the belt sander. That said, it's entirely possible that my lack of experience with a belt sander played a significant role in the outcome. But having said that, even though it has been years and years since I used a belt sander, I mean, over a decade and a half, I mean, a very long time, I'm pretty sure it was a Makita. I remember turning that thing on and having it just kind of torque over in my hand, and it ate up whatever wood that a friend of mine had me sand with it. I mean, it just ate it up. This thing, yeah, not so much. I turned it over. I mean, when I turned it on, I didn't feel it torque noticeably. It did a little bit, but I didn't go, oh, wow. The dust collection on this thing, again, the brand is Vevor. It's from Amazon. It actually got fairly decent reviews, but you get what you pay for. I paid $32.99, I think, for this thing. The reason I got it rather than a better one locally through Big Box Store or Ace or even Harbor Freight. See this? It allows it to do this. And you supposedly should be able to clamp it onto a workbench using the cheapest, biggest piece of junk, couple of clamps that they could possibly send and still call them a clamp. Yeah, the jury's out. If this thing doesn't perform well clamped like this on different material, not just wood, but on different material, like sharpening a lawnmower blade or something like that, a quickie, it's going back. The major reason it's going back is the worst excuse for dust collection I have ever had. Um, you saw the results. You saw how dusty I was afterwards. Well, what you didn't see is when I took this off to clean it out, there was almost no dust in it at all. There's a little zipper here. Um, it was just horrible. That said, there is an adapter for a shop vac. So I will defer judgment on its dust collecting ability until after I hook it up to a shop vac. But on its own, this is useless, just straight up useless. It does not collect dust. I collected the dust, as you can see it on me. The results, again, this could be just me. Um, it took a lot longer than I thought to to smooth out the seams, and it left a good. I don't know if you can even see it. It's doggone light wood, but it left a lot of gouges. Um, I'm just not impressed. But again, it could be just me. Um, this strip here is where I had the blue masking tape, so ignore that. Number two is the Skill Random Orbital, said it right that time, sander. I deliberately left the dust in the dust collection bin because it did a reasonably good job collecting the dust. Not great, not something I would want to use inside my garage. I am so glad that I didn't do this experiment in my garage because of that belt sander, because my resin printers, it just leaves too much particulate matter in the air. But for a non-vacuum dust collection, it did okay. Not super great, but it did okay. It did not come with a hose adapter, but I can measure this thing out and print one in fairly short order. So yeah, so I'm fairly happy with this. Oh, by the way, the in terms of noise, I was shocked. It wasn't a super controlled experiment, but this thing was 95 dB, 95 decibels. The Ridgid planer, the dedicated planer, it was also in combination with the shop vac. It was also 95 dB. That's 100 dB is where, if I understand what I've read correctly, is where damage to your hearing can start to occur with, not 15-minute exposure or something like that. It's loud. It didn't seem as loud as the planer and shop vac at the same time, but I think I had the cell phone in approximately the same distance from everything. But this is too loud to use without hearing protection, straight up bottom line. You want to use this with hearing protection too. In terms of the results, this is arguably the most difficult area. It had the biggest lump, the biggest separation. Um, well, that's just crap wood there. It did okay. It took longer to eliminate than the belt sander did. The belt sander did hog off more on a minute per minute basis compared to the orbital sander. Um, but the sander held its own as far as I'm concerned. So, what's the final analysis? Heck if I know. I use, based on what I did here, we have an N of one, a sampling of one. If I had to buy one tool, I would probably get the orbital sander. I love working with a hand plane, but that's a one-trick pony. That's the only thing that it's good for. With the orbital sander, you can use it for any variety of projects, stripping furniture, making of course, your diorama. There's even edging attachments so that the sander, instead of can work parallel, perfect 90 degrees, whatever, on your edging wood. It's like a jig. It's like a guide. So getting a belt sander, that's kind of a one-trick pony too. I'll see if clamping it down as it's supposedly designed to do will also, increase your utility. My guess is though that the thing's going to go back to Amazon. I just got it today, so obviously I'm well within the return period, but I'll give it a fair shake. But for me, I like hand planing. I just do. There's when it works, which you didn't see, and you're getting those getting paper thin, curly strips of wood every time you move it, and you hear this. There's just something organic about it. And it produced pretty nice results. But again, it takes practice. I'm by no means a master, but for everybody, it'll take practice. So there you have it. This is ending number 1 of this video. It's possible that there may be a different ending or an addendum to this video, or her addressing. I want her to guess. I want her to choose which surface worked best. She has no idea what number 1, number 2, and number 3. Only thing she will know is to compare these, other than the tape strip, to this and see which is closer to the baseline. This is the baseline that went through the big planer. Which of these 3 did a better job of replicating the planer? Maybe she'll add it to it. I don't know, but we'll figure it out. But there you go. You saw what I did. Your needs are different than my needs. Maybe you're not willing to put up with, learning a hand plane. You don't have to get a vintage Stanley plane like what I had. The bigger of the 2 planes is actually a Miller Falls. It's a Stanley number 6 or number 7 equivalent. I can't remember which. But it's made for taking off more wood over a larger area. Probably I would not have had to use that big plane if it had been pine and it had been on a secure heavy-duty table like out in the garage. The smoothing plane would have been just fine. So there you have it. I'm not going to tell you which one to buy. You know me, I just don't tell people what they should or should not have. Your results would probably vary regardless of which tool you chose. But for me, based on my experience today, if I had to choose just one tool, it would be the orbital sander because of the results and because it's not a one-trick pony. I can use it for other things. So there you have it. I hope you've liked what you've seen. I hope you've learned something. If you find a better way of doing things, especially the belt sander, absolutely leave a comment for me down in the section. I am not a sage on the stage. I want to learn. So if you've liked what you've seen, consider giving us a thumbs up, hitting that subscribe button, and turning on the alert whenever we put up a new episode, which is pretty much daily. In the meantime, everyone, have a good day.